Greetings, family.
Greetings.
Okay then. Before we start, first thing, make sure you switch your mobile phones off or put it on silence, so we don't want no disturbance at all. Yeah. The first thing, how you feeling? That's the first thing. Yeah. Feeling good?
Absolutely.
Good time. Okay then. Like I said earlier on, we have to be flexible. We have to be flexible, because if you're not flexible in this game here, you're in trouble.
Absolutely.
You're truly in trouble. And even though we have some challenges, the fact is that we're still here and we're going through what needs to be done, because we're quite clear on our purpose. And even though the devil have a plan, we have a bigger plan for him. So,
absolutely.
you know, there's a lot of work to be done.
That's right. Who said
Bring them on.
Right. Okay then. At this point here, we're doing a tribute to Honorable Brother Kwame Nkrumah, and be led by Nzinga. And we were in Nzinga earlier on, but lovely poets. Yeah. Okay, then open up. Please welcome Nzinga to the front. Come on.
Thank you. Greetings. I won't take up a lot of time, but just to say that, as Brother Dudley said, we thank him. We're going to be speaking now. Brother Sawyerr is going to be doing a presentation on the legacy of the greatest, one of Africa's greatest hero, Dr. Osagyefo Kwame Nkrumah, who was the first president of Ghana. Now, Dr. Nkrumah is known to many of us and is known internationally, but for those who don't know him, I'm sure the presentation will give us a greater insight into who this great African was and what he stood for. We know that he stood for a united Africa under an egalitarian system where all our people benefited, and not just the few who could cream off the best of the things for themselves. And I'm just going to open by telling you just one of the things that our brother and our beloved ancestor, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, said about African people. And it's in my book, because I think that where we have people who are championing our cause, we should be quoting them so that we know that they're leaving us a legacy. He says that all people of African descent, whether they live in North or South America, the Caribbean, or in any other part of the world, are Africans and belong to the African nation. And so what we're going to do now, we're going to have the presentation, and then we'll hopefully have some time for questions. So let us welcome Brother Sawyerr.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
Good evening.
Good evening. Should I give you the initial chant that we say? Choboy! Hey! Choboy! Hey! CPP wire, wire, wire! Wire! Yeni ko! Yeni ko! Aye! Thank you for that. No, I love all of that, but can you translate what you just said? It's just saying that CPP is on the move. And it means that Nkrumah is calling his children to follow him. All right. Can I hear that one more time? Yeah. Just CPP, wire.
It means we know how to fight. We don't know how to run. We know how to fight.
Excellent.
So let's go.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not as powerful as the previous speakers. And I'm also not well versed in the art of poetry. But what I'm going to try and do is to provide what I would call a little representation of the lives and works of Kwame Nkrumah. He has inspired me. He has inspired several people. And I hope that after this speech, I know that you've already been inspired by him. But I know that after trying to talk a little bit about him, you'll be convinced that he's truly one of the greatest people, not only of Africa, but of the world. Okay? I'll try and touch a little bit on his life and his works. So I talk a little bit about his early life, how he was also influenced in the diaspora, which is really what spurred him on to go to Ghana and Africa and do great things for all the black people in the world. I'll talk a little bit about what happened back home, independence, and then probably talk a little bit about his death. And since this is a book fair, really try and contextualize Nkrumah in the light of the books that he lives for us, which is why when we truly say Nkrumah never dies, because his work and his vision lives on forever. Okay. And Nkrumah was born to, came from ordinary parents, which is very important. And it's very important in Africa that people who aspire to great things come from ordinary parents, because during his days in Africa, we had a royalist and a feudalist system, which had been collaborated with the colonial system through indirect rule to rule over us. Nkrumah was born from very humble parents. He went to school, he did fairly well in school. And then he went to a seminary, because really the path of people aspiring to be great people in our country was really through the church system. So he saw himself as somebody who would also study, who would also study the Bible, and who would be able to have influence, again within the colonial system, within the country. But then somewhere along the line, he decided to train as a teacher. And again, the route to people becoming priests is that you become a teacher, a catechist, and then when you are much older and much wiser, you then become a priest so that you can minister unto your parish. So he took down that route. But along the line, when he went to Achimota, he met people, and Achimota is one of these schools that were set up on the colonial system to try and educate people for the civil service and for leadership in our country. He did his teacher training there, and then he started writing. He was inspired by Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe, who eventually became the president of Nigeria, was the first president of Nigeria. He was in Ghana, because then at that time, Ghana was a hotbed of agitation against the colonial regime. There were several people operating in Ghana at the time, people not only from the African continent, but the whole Pan-African continent who had come to Ghana. There were people from the West Indies, there were people from St. Lucia, and it was really a melting pot of agitation. People had come from Sierra Leone, and Nkrumah started learning about what politics really is. And he was truly influenced, not by Ghanaians, but by other people from other nations who had come there to work and challenge the government. So he wrote a little bit, and Azikiwe advised them, said, my brother, go west, as they tell everybody. Because if you are going to run a country, then go and learn about other people. But more importantly, go into study through the path that I did. I went to Lincoln. So go to Lincoln University. So to Lincoln he went. He chose America instead of Britain, because what Azikiwe wanted to inspire him was his meeting with the real diaspora of black people in the world. So that was really his early life. As I said, he went to Lincoln. He worked very hard. He studied very hard. He wasn't on a scholarship, so he was doing all sorts of work. He was just like an online man there, studying and working. And he started on still on his theology, because he was still thinking of how to speak, how to learn, how to minister unto people. And then after his first degree, he did another degree, and this one was in political science, because he was then trying to look at the politics of the situation in terms of how it affected black people in the world. Of course, in the diaspora, you can't go to the diaspora and not be influenced by people in the diaspora. But what also happened was that in the 40s, America was when there was this massive revolution of black people in the world. He was part of the African students movement, was part of the Black American students movement. He served on various committees. He worked with various people. He was influenced by them. He made links with people from Guyana, from Trinidad, from Nigeria, from Egypt, from South Africa, all over the world. And that was what started shaping him for his life, his political life. When he left America, he said, let me come down to England, and maybe now no longer theology. All the top people in Africa are lawyers, so let me come and study law. So again, he went to LSE, he did some political science, said, let me do a PhD, and then later on become a lawyer, because it's only lawyers who are respected people in our country. So he was in the practice of studying the law. But he then had another opportunity in this country, because this was 1945. This was the time when people like Sawyerr, James, and others were also agitating. This was the time of the Pan-Africanist Conference, the most important conference that tried to, the second one that tried to shape the lives of black people in the world. The first one had been in 1928 when he was much younger. But in 1945 was Manchester. And so it was Manchester he went, and it was in Manchester that he also met several other people who were actually agitating against colonial rule in Africa and in all the colonies. He organized the students' movement, and then with that, he then felt that he was then ready for the great work that he had to go and do in Africa. But Nkrumah was a very humble person. He was humble in the sense that he was prepared to work for others. He wasn't one of these leaders who said that he has to lead. His belief was that in order to be able to lead, you have to first serve. So there was the United Gold Coast movement, which had been set up. There were a team of 5 lawyers from different tribes in Africa, from different tribes in Ghana, who was agitating for independence. And one of them, Akwadi, who we called our own John the Baptist, was asked to be general secretary. And he said, why should I leave my practice, legal practice? When you are all practicing the law, you want to make me general secretary so that you go into town and make all the money. I can't do that. But I know a man. I know a man who I met in America, who I also met in England. And I know that man as somebody who was a great organizer, has several links with several people who had actually done grassroots work. And I think that if there's a position of general secretary, we should invite that man. So Nkrumah was invited to go to Ghana to become general secretary of the United Gold Coast Convention. Within 3 months in Ghana, his work has started paying off. Because the UDCC was a club of what I call middle-class lawyers who were generally doing things a little bit in Accra. Nkrumah took up the task and he started going to all the regions. And within 3 months, the work he had done had paid off. Because within 3 months, and that was, he had got into Ghana in 1947, December, and by 1948, there was the massacre of people at the castle by the returned soldiers who had gone and fought in the World War, but who had not received their pay, who were agitating to say that we've gone and fought for the British all over in Burma and everywhere. We've come back home, we just have our guns, we don't have any money. There were people who we call them Dento. Take my gun and give me food to eat. Because I've gone to fight for the colonial regime and I don't have any money. So he, together with Kwadi and others, organized these ex-service men. They decided to go to the castle, which is the seat of government, to present their petition so that they should be paid and they should be rehabilitated. That's like veterans in this country and veterans in America are. And the British people panicked. So Imri, who was one of the police chiefs, ordered for them to be fired. And 3 of the soldiers, Sergeant Agete, Corporal Atiku, and Private Odate Lanta, were slaughtered. What did the government do? It immediately caught Nkrumah and the other Big 6 who were the leaders of the UGCC movement and put them in jail. Because they said that you are agitating against us. And they were saying that what we need is really a commission of inquiry so that we find out what would happen. Based on that agitation, his own party, that's the United Gold Coast Convention, rejected him because they said, oh, Nkrumah, you're a communist. They went and searched his house and found literature in terms of his discussions with people and said, no, we don't want communism. We are going to inherit this colonial system from the white man. Don't bring that Eastern propaganda about communism to come and disturb what we're doing. So they decided to chuck him out of the party. And on the 12th of June, 1949, he set up what is called the Convention People's Party, a party that I belong to, a party that I'm honored to belong to. We haven't won power since 1966, but we still live by the vision of Kwame Nkrumah. What then happened? He organized against the UGCC because he was the man who went to all the regions. And in election upon election, he won. Why did he win? Because Nkrumah's mantra says, go to the people, live with them, find out what they want, build on what they have done, and then that is when you can truly start serving the people. So in 1951, he was in prison. And yet, he stood as a candidate in an election. And the people organized, and he won that election in a very prominent seat, which was the seat of Accra Central. He did not come from that area. Normally, elections in Africa are tribal. If you don't come from an area, nobody votes for you. But everybody voted for Nkrumah in Accra, Central Accra, which was the heartbeat of the country. And they carried him from prison straight into the castle to be the person who will be the first African leader. His title then was Leader of Government Business because it wasn't Prime Minister yet. And it was then that the real agitation for independence started. He still had white people who were foreign ministers and everything. But he said that no, we need to go. And so in 1953, he read through what we call the motion of destiny. And the motion of destiny was about agitation, really saying that it is time that black people are able to run their countries for themselves. And he was going to ensure that this will be done in Africa. From the motion of destiny, it meant that Ghana was then going into independence. But there was a particular strategy that Osadeko Dr. Kwame Nkrumah used, which actually disturbed and actually disarmed a lot of people. His Ghana was not only about Ghanaians. His Ghana was about Africans. And his Ghana was not only about Africans in the sense of the continent of Africa, but his Ghana and his Africa was about Africans everywhere they were in the world. One of the things that Nkrumah never forgot was the support that he had got from people like George Padmore. The support that he had got from people like Sawyerr James, Ras McConnell, people like W.E.B. Du Bois, anybody, some other, Neville Dawes, whatever. There were people who had all come to Ghana because at independence, what he said was that the independence of Ghana is meaningless unless it is linked with the total liberation of Africa. And he made that his life's work. And he made that his vision. The reason why he collaborated with people in the diaspora was that he realized that this thinking about independence and this thinking about freedom was not just a concept that was in Africa. It was a concept about emancipation of all African people. In 1948, he had written a book towards colonial freedom. He had been helped by people in terms of shaping his views and his vision about what was that the black man needed to do. And therefore, that collaboration was very important. I remember, this was the same. The history should got a book here. And I remember very well that the first head of our broadcasting in our country was somebody who came from Guyana. The first head of the Institute of Journalism was somebody who came from Sierra Leone. There were people from St. Lucia. We grew up with them, doctors, lawyers. People came from America, Sutherland, Lee, and they were all working in Ghana as Africans. They were not expatriates. They were people who had come. And indeed, in my own party, and I don't know, anybody can never imagine that the general secretary of the CPP, which is a Ghanaian party, was a Sierra Leone man, Cecil Ford. It's never happened anywhere before. And to symbolize it, when he got ready to get married, he went to Egypt. Because what he wanted to do was not just talking about African unity, but he was talking about the symbol of bringing people together. So Nkrumah was about creating the reason why there's not been any bastard in Ghana today, and people don't forget, Ivory Coast is happening. Kenya, they are fighting. It's because what Nkrumah did, he came from a small tribe. He healed all ethnic wounds. His process of education was about bringing everybody together so that we're able to celebrate the things that bind us together, not to fight about the things that divide us. And it's truly remarkable that when people talk about stability and peace and democracy in Ghana, those came from the roots that Nkrumah initially engendered for all of us in Africa. And what did he do in Africa? What did he do in Ghana? He developed Ghana. Before Nkrumah came, there were less than 100 schools. Within a couple of years, there were like 1,100 schools. He started an accelerated educational program. I went to secondary school at the age of 9, when I could barely wash my own clothes. Because there was an accelerated program. He was saying that, let us give education to the people. Because based on the education and based on the skills that they have, that's what will help us to be able to transform our economy into a first-class economy. We have a motorway in Ghana, Accra motorway. It was built in 1960, before the M4 was built. It's still there. The motorway is as good as it was in 1960. First class. He built it. It's better than your M1. And people said he was wasting money on projects. He built our infrastructure. He built our industries. Because our industries were controlled by foreign powers. And he said that if there's a bank that is not a Ghanaian bank, he will set up one. If there's a factory that is not a Ghanaian factory, he will set up one. And he would use the power of the state to emancipate our people. Because what do our people need? They need jobs. What do our people need? They need health. What do our people need? They need financial muscle. So, but apart from that, Nkrumah inculcated in us what we call the African personality. I was a member of the Young Pioneer Movement. So from the age 12, I was being taught about leadership. I was being taught about public speaking. I was being taught about how to respect other black people wherever you see them. That was what Nkrumah did for us in the country. Because what he was doing was giving every black person in the world a sense of pride. And Prince Philip always remembers him, because he comes to England and he is dressed in his kente garb. No more suits for him. Because he was back now in his country and was very comfortable with what it was that he was doing in his country, Ghana. But it wasn't just about Ghana, because this is what people forget about Nkrumah. Nkrumah made compact with Guinea and Mali. So we had the Ghana-Guinea-Mali Union. He was testing African unity at the time that you hadn't set up the European Union. He was testing not only an economic union, but a political union of people in Africa. He helped with the freedom fighter movement. That was how come Mugabe came to work in Ghana. He helped form the PAC. So if you look at the star of the PAC, which is a South African party, you see the star, Africa, stuck in Ghana, because it was in Ghana that he helped Sobukwe and others to form the PAC. And there's a phenomenon. If you go to Gambia, there are some people who are called the Ghana boys. And in Ghana, we call them the Gambia boys. So wherever they go. And that's an interesting concept. In 1961, Nkrumah brought 98 young boys from the Gambia to Ghana. Initially, at that age, they were around 12, 13. They took them first to the military range and trained them in warfare. And then they distributed them into every secondary school in Ghana. And during their holidays, they stayed with the members of parliament. What was Nkrumah doing? He was building for Africa. If you go to Gambia today and you ask about the Ghana boys, they'll tell you that this guy is a minister, this guy is head of the bank, this guy is the attorney general, this guy was this. And they came and they lived with us and they worked with us and they stayed with us, and some of them even went to university in Ghana. Because he did not do that for only Gambia, but because Gambia that he brought 98. But he meant to do that with every African country, because he felt that the issue of African unity was too important. He mooted an African high command, because what he said, not the one that Bush and Obama are toying with the African command where they are there for the protection of Americans. What he said was that in every trouble spot in Africa, Africans should be able to solve their own problems. So this was a man with a great vision for the African Union, even before it became fashionable in the West. What did Nkrumah say? He said, we look neither to the east or to the west. We look forward, because that is where we can achieve our destiny. So Nkrumah was not only about Ghana, he was also about Africa. But Nkrumah went on further. He was also about the world. There was the non-aligned movement. He made Ghana and Africa proud. And this was based on his rules and his efforts at peace. He was overthrown when he was in a trip to Hanoi to actually solve the Vietnam problem. No other African head of state had even toyed with doing that. So this, for us, is the man Nkrumah. But Ghana was caught in the Cold War because pressures on us, so that is when people started engineering a movement to overthrow. Anywhere you go in the world, there's something named after Nkrumah. Somebody sent me a postcard from India, Kwame Nkrumah Street. Said, oh, why? Recently, New York, they named something after him. He's been made the African man of the millennium. But Nkrumah, through his writings, started talking to us about neocolonialism. He said, look, there's a phase that would go. We would all become independent. But for as long as the resources that are held in our country are held by foreign powers, we will never be free. And that is what it is that we are still struggling in Africa in terms of the Pan-Africanist world. Okay. This you can't see, but I'll tell you what it is. Nkrumah had a plan. We had something we call the 7-year development plan. And the 7-year development plan was about transforming Ghana from a low-income country into a high-income country. And he was going to do that by setting up several industries in Ghana. And he did. He set up industries all over the place. The banks, he built infrastructure, he set up commercial organizations, financial organizations. He set up so many organizations that are still in existence today, despite the efforts of the World Bank to have all of them privatized. They are still there. Ghana Airways, too numerous to mention within the Ghanaian concept. But they were focused on infrastructure, on education, on health, various industries, and various commercial and financial corporations. So everything that anybody wanted, they could get in Africa. These achievements can never be met by any other head of state, not only in Ghana or Africa, but in the world. What did they accuse him of? They said that he spent our money that the white man had left for us. He spend them on projects.